Tonight, we have Keith Saunders. We're going to talk just a little bit here first about SPLOST and where we're at, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the recommended candidate projects that is going forward. So, Keith, what would you like to talk about SPLOST 2020 and where we're at?
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. We do have, this is in May, there's several dates for SPLOST 2020 coming up, and there are three in addition to tonight in May. Tomorrow night, May 14th, the Citizens Advisory Committee will be presenting their recommended candidate projects to Mayor and Commission at the work session. That will be televised. Also be at City Hall at 5:30. And then on Thursday night, the committee has a public meeting to get comments, input from the public about those projects. And then also Mayor and Commission will be taking public input at a public hearing type as part of the May 21st agenda setting meeting. Again, that's at City Hall. So there's several opportunities for public input. We still are also taking comments online about projects. We have about almost 1,200 comments to date that we've also published all of those online.
Okay. So with, so you talked about the Citizens Advisory Committee. Could you tell just a little bit more about the role the Citizens Advisory Committee plays in this, and are they now done with their aspect of it, and then what, how then that goes to the Mayor Commission, and how that might, how this might change or not change?
Sure. The Mayor Commission appointed a Citizens Advisory Committee of 22 members. They have been having a lot of meetings since January. They are, for the most part, wrapped up as far as project selections go. They received 88 projects worth a little over about $1.2 billion worth of projects. And they listened to presentations from those submitting the projects all through January, February, and early March. From that, they've gone through 2 rounds of voting and to get to what we're calling the candidate list of projects that they're presenting to Mayor and Commission tomorrow. That is a list of projects for the full amount of the budget the Mayor and Commission gave them to work with. That's 22 projects that they are recommending for about roughly $128 million worth of the program. And so that list gets presented tomorrow to Mayor and Commission, and they will evaluate that list. More than likely, there will be changes to it. If this Mayor and Commission did not change the list some, it would probably be the first time. Generally, this is a recommendation from the committee. It's not a mandate. It's go forward. So ultimately, in the July vote meeting, we're hopeful the Mayor and Commission will put together the final list of projects that are going forward for the referendum. The process is Mayor and Commission will decide on projects in July, and then with cooperation with Winterville and Bogart and some intergovernmental agreements, we will finalize the referendum language in August. Has to get finalized to get ready for the ballot in November, so the ballot can get printed. So for right now, the committee, once they do their presentation, they are done with the project phase. But the Citizens Committee is also the group that will do the campaign for the program. Staff, Mayor, and Commissioners are not allowed to campaign for the program or any particular project, so the Citizens group would be the group that would do that.
Okay. How does your part come into play with all of this, with what you do as the SPLOST administrator for the ACC?
Well, my part at this stage of the game is really just facilitating the process, working with the committee to make sure that they have the information they need, mostly pulling information together for the committee, organizing the meetings, then taking their votes and their input and their decisions, and putting those in the formats similar to the page that's here with the project information for Mayor and Commission and for the public, and helping disseminate that information. So more of an organizational role than anything. I don't vote. I don't try to campaign for any of the projects in particular. Whatever the Citizens Committee wanted, and we just try to make sure if they wanted information, needed input from other agencies or other departments, try to organize that and make sure they had access to those folks.
Just I guess talking about SPLOST a little more generally, how do you balance a lot of the SPLOST projects as they kind of continue on from previous SPLOST. I mean, I think there still are some SPLOST 2005 things hanging out there, or 2011, and where, how do you kind of wrap that up and make room for these new projects? Or I'm just curious how that works.
Well, we do have a couple of, but really just right at this point now, one 2005 SPLOST program project left, which is the work down on Clayton Street. And of course, one of the reasons that it's still ongoing is it was not enough funding for the work that needed to be done. So with the passage of the T-SPLOST and the additional funding for that allows it hopefully to wrap up in the next 12 to 18 months. And then that program will be completed. 2011 is a program has a few projects left on it. Some of those are continuation projects, we call them, like the Firefly Trail or the Greenway. And those projects may carry on from program to program, and whatever money is left in one will continue to get spent and added to the next program if it has a similar project in it.
Questions for Keith? Kira?
I was curious about the campaigning aspect, and to clarify, the staff, mayor, none of the commissions can campaign for the referendum as a whole or for any specific projects, or both?
Really, I guess we would take that as both, because to campaign for any individual project would be in essence
Right.
campaigning for the
But in
referendum.
terms of the referendum itself, just as a whole, still no.
Still no campaigning.
So is the Citizen Advisory Committee being tasked with the campaigning? Is there a structure around that? Is there anything formal? How do we get the information out so that people will actually review what's at stake and get people to vote and hopefully approve?
Right. Excellent question. The committee is tasked with doing the campaigning as part of the process. That was one of their tasks when they got appointed. Structure and how they do that is up to each individual committee. Each program is different. And I believe previous SPLOST programs, years go by, it's been a while since there was SPLOST. 2010 was the last, vote for a true SPLOST on the transportation. Theirs was a lot more door-to-door, mailers, newspaper, yard signs. The transportation SPLOST that was back 2018, they campaigned primarily with internet media, social media. So each committee can decide how they want to do that, whether or not they want to raise funds for advertisement or yard signs or a lot. But we'll say that it'd be probably important to them to get to as many public venues like this to speak as the committee members were comfortable getting to.
Other questions for Keith? Yes.
One, thank you for all the time that you guys have put into this. It seems monumental from what I've seen as observer. But also, I noticed that there are obviously a few projects that got put back on the list by Mayor and Commission that were not ones that you initially recommended. Could you explain why those weren't recommended and why they got put back on the list?
There were a couple of projects that Mayor Commission, and this happened in the previous programs as well, that through the different vote stages, the first vote that the committee took the project list. It was more than the budget amount. They presented that to the Mayor Commission for input and direction. Mayor Commission specifically asked them to put a couple of projects back on the list for consideration that would help take some of the relief off the general fund for capital improvements that would allow that money to be used for other things. So the committee listened, the committee agreed to put those back on the list. Mayor Commission didn't mandate that they must put them back on. They asked, the committee voted and approved. In addition to that, when they did that, the committee also decided, as part of that there were several others they wanted to put back on the list as a group. And so they added, I think it was about 7 other projects that weren't on the original list presented to the Mayor Commission. They added back to the list as well. Some of those projects made this recommended list, and many of them did not. Of course, there was a lot of other projects that were on the original list that had to get cut too. There's not enough funds.
Yes.
I'm curious, on some of these projects, say 5 with the $82 million for the space renovation project, how is the funding for maintenance and upkeep put into that? Is that just, it's assumed that the city is going to pick that up out of the regular budget?
Right. The general fund would have to pick up the operating costs once a project is complete, because the SPLOST program can't be used to cover general maintenance and operations of the building. So as part of the consideration for all the projects, the committee looked at what would a project add to the operating expense when it was done. In total, the projects that they're recommending on this list add about less than $1 million to the general fund overall. Part of that is because several of these projects are envisioned, once completed, to save money from the general fund, such as the renewable energy would help save electrical energy costs that the county is currently spending on those buildings. So with those savings, it's a little less than $1 million. Mayor Commission had asked for this to come back to them with no more than $4 million in increased operating costs, so they well exceeded that request.
And some are clearly renovations or replacements of existing buildings, so they would have their own cost already that for maintenance and whatnot, right?
That's correct. Like replacement of fire station number 5, it has operating expenses with it today, so those would continue. And it's like the other new stations, it would be a little bit bigger, so maybe a little bit of an increase, so that net increase would be covered by the general fund.
Yes.
I wanted to ask about the fire station. It says land acquisition on that. This is the one that's in our neighborhood or close to it. Are they planning to move that, like buy land and move it, or are they planning to just expand where they are?
That hadn't been decided. That would be, once the referendum passed and the project got started moving forward, a site selection committee would be assembled. In order to build on the site they're at, to build a new building, would mean the station would have to go at least somewhere temporarily. And I don't know that site's big enough to build a new type station on. So we put it here, just as part of the process, we would go through that site selection and hopefully probably find a new site, more than likely.
Is that why there's no cost on it, because they don't really know what they're going to do?
No, there's no cost on there because I made a mistake when I typed it this afternoon. And I forgot to put the cost on there. I missed that one. It is, the cost is published on the website.
I was going to say, it's online, so you can find it. Yes.
You're the program administrator, very important part of the program. I think SPLOST started in 1985.
Is that right?
About 1985. I was wondering how much money has been collected to date so far. And then I was wondering if you supported, if there's been any public audits of SPLOST. And since you're the administrator, what's your position on the public audit of SPLOST? And what kind of thought or work have you put into that?
I would have to go back and check to see what the total collected has been. I don't have those numbers for all those
You
years.
think it's over 500 million or under 500?
I think it'd be under 500 million.
And then, do you support our charter officer auditing SPLOST?
That would be up to Mayor Commission. If that's what they choose to do, we'll certainly support it in any way that they ask us to. I know the SPLOST program has been audited in the past. It's been some years ago. I've been there about 14 years, and it was prior to my joining the SPLOST program. But we would certainly support it if that's what Mayor Commission asks.
Yeah. Thanks for your service. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Just a quick update, I did look it up. The Fire Station 5 replacement is coming in at $6.4 million, and with an estimated cost impact of $17,000-ish per year. Yeah, whoa. The phone's good. Computer in our pockets. Okay. Other questions? All right. Yes.
So I actually, I asked somebody who was on the CAC, but for other people who might be interested, I noticed that the Athens-Clarke-County Public Library, number 59, says preferably in the southeast Clarke Park district of the county. It was my understanding that this was pretty specifically supposed to be an east side library. Is that the case?
That is the way that the library presented it, yes, was on
Okay.
the east side. I think it references the preferable site would be southeast Clarke Park. There was some land set aside when the park master plan was first done for that. That's not necessarily to say that will be the site. Again, like the fire station, we'll go through site selection once the referendum passes and the project starts. It could be that there's some other better piece of land that becomes available, but at least at the park, the land's already paid for.
But it was presented as an east side
Yes. And it
location.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Reading the numbering system isn't correct because probably you're jumping like 1 to 6 or something. Is that because those projects in between have already numbered or eliminated?
That's correct. Just to save confusion, because we've had a list of 88 projects online for months. Didn't renumber the project list yet. Once Mayor Commission sets a final list of projects, then we'll renumber them. But this way, if people have been familiar with the project number, it's still there. And all of the projects are still listed on the site. You can still leave comments on any of the projects. This just happens to be the list. I was trying to get it down to a one-pager that the committee is recommending tomorrow.
And one other question, there were originally proposed some street work and they eliminated almost everything on there. Is that because of the new SPLOST or the road improvements?
Well, that was, the committee certainly, they made that choice. I think that whether or not a project was eligible for SPLOST funds in the next round was probably weighed into their decision making. I don't want to speak for them. I know we have one committee member here tonight, but I think that certainly weighed heavy. Just the sheer number of projects that were out there, the limited funds, and the fact that those did have eligibility for another source in a couple of years. That just kind of, I think that helped. You can't get in their mind and make a choice, to take exactly why, but I think it certainly impacted.
Other questions? Yes.
Just on the renewable energy 51 and 84, I said that the C says below, of course, what's the excuse of that, but the very last line of 84. I'm wondering, what are some examples of what you're going to use, or are you going to like have biodiesel for police cars or by that time? What's the thinking they're going to use for sustainable energy? Is it going to be windmills?
Well, I certainly haven't heard anybody mention windmills. I would think solar would probably play a part in that. Increasing energy efficiency of buildings would play a part of that. I think the opportunities are wide open. Technology is changing and improving rapidly. So what we have today may not be viable or may not be the best thing as the funding comes across and the program goes to life. So I wouldn't want to limit it, but I would think as far as renewable energy right now, predominantly solar is probably the number one choice that you're talking about.
It really does. Where's the money going to spend yet?
Right. I mean, there's an overall project statement that the goal for the project trying to accomplish, but once the referendum passes and we get into it, there'll be a user group is usually established with some citizens and staff to come together to try to figure out how to best spend and make the project achieve the goals that it was intended for. Now, some projects like the fire station, it has a true goal. It's going to build a new fire station. This one is a little more open-ended because it's a long-term program. There's lots of opportunities for different technology that may come around that we don't know about today.
I can just read the little short paragraph that follows that on that number 84 Energy Sustainability Program, which was the types of suitable projects for this proposal primarily fall under three main categories: providing funds to allow new ACC buildings funded through SPLOST or other means to achieve net zero energy, providing funds to increase the energy efficiency of existing ACC facilities and providing funds to electrify the ACC vehicle fleet. So those were the items, and that also then kind of gets back to some of the issues that were brought up earlier about ongoing costs that would be coming out of the general fund. So this would be the idea of putting an investment in to then help lower costs hopefully later on. So, Patrick?
What is the projected length or time for this SPLOST? How long will this be?
What, the current total dollar value that Marion Commission has approved is $278 million, and based on our estimates today, that would take about 10 years to collect.
10 years, it's a long time. But I will say, when SPLOST 2011 happened, that seemed like a really long time. And look, here we are again, talking about SPLOST. Seems like it just was yesterday. So, other questions?
Let me just ask,
Sorry.
one thing you asked about the energy sustainability. That is one of the projects that ultimately had the best impact on operating costs for the county because it substantially lowered operating costs. I believe it was anticipated somewhere around $750,000 a year could be saved on energy alone from that project.
When you're talking about putting an electric fleet of vehicles, public vehicles, are you gonna actually offer any kind of charging station for people that might transfer over to, hybrids or your total electric cars? Is that part of that? That you discussed?
It hasn't been discussed again. That'd be another one of those things that the project could potentially be open to.
Yes, Patrick.
Can you explain, I don't know the answer to these, but I just think that the public to understand. Can you explain to us the process of SPLOST or when it ends and why we are pushing for the current SPLOST? Like when the current SPLOST ends and why this one?
The fixed time versus fixed dollar.
That's correct.
Right. The SPLOST by Georgia law has a couple of options. One option is either for a specified amount of years, and that is probably across the state. Predominantly, that's what's is used, where you either can have 5 or 6 year fixed time program. The state law does allow for consolidating governments an option to set a dollar amount for the program versus an amount of time. So what SPLOST 2011 was a fixed dollar amount. What Marion Commission is proposing for SPLOST 2020 is a fixed dollar amount. And so in that case, instead of stopping collections at a certain number of years, you collect until you get that dollar amount. Now the trick is, because you got to time a renewal of the SPLOST program with elections, is trying to time when you think you'll hit that collection point so that you're in the same cycle. I will say that I think previous financial director did a very good job in setting on the SPLOST 2011 projection. It's projected to complete, it hit its target in February of 2019, and with this 2020 referendum passes, then collections would start April of 2020, so it falls in line with the allotted collection cycle really well. February 2020.
Yes.
February 2020. I'm sorry, yes, February 2020.
Is this a tax? Is this a tax increase on the citizens of Athens-Clarke County?
This would be a continuation of the existing SPLOST, but it would not increase the amount of sales taxes collected. It should stay the same.
What would happen if this SPLOST gets voted down as far as coming up with the next SPLOST? Would that be within years, or would that be?
Well, the earliest it would be November of the following year, because the law requires that you have at least a 1 year in between your SPLOST referendum vote. So the earliest it would be another vote would be November of 2020. But I'm not going to tell you about that option. Yes.
There's one project in here that seems so unique. That's number 83, which is a sidewalk in a specific neighborhood. Could you explain why a particular sidewalk in a particular neighborhood deserves to be put up as SPLOST?
Well, the merits of it, that's the committee that chose to put it on the list. It is a very heavily traveled section of road. they did a real good job of presenting their project and convincing the committee that it was one that's needed. I try not to get into too much whether or not I believe it needs to be there. That it's really not my call. I know there is a need out there. I'm out that way. There's transit is on that street. There is a lot of pedestrian traffic. There are no sidewalks on either side, and it is a 45-mile-an-hour street. It was a project that was proposed for the SPLOST program, and it did make the cut. It is on the bike ped master plan as a project to be funded, but it's probably not going to hit the funding in the Tier 1 schedule that's right on the bubble.
I don't know anything about that project, but I'll still talk about it anyway. It's never stopped me before. But I do know that there's also some stormwater issues out on Vincent Drive, and it might be possible that there's a little bit of a tie-in that there might be some other work that could be happening to make some stormwater improvements. And if you're gonna dig that stuff up anyway, then if there were the funds to also do the sidewalk, you could make that whole transportation corridor a lot better. And I suspect that there could be some synergy going on there that doesn't come through, I think, on this. But
it would also allow sidewalk connectivity for all of those neighborhoods along Vincent Drive to Holland Park as well, which is it's a very busy park. That would be,
and to public transportation.
And to the public transit system, yes.
Okay. Anything else I could tell you about that I don't know anything about? Okay, go ahead, Judy.
So are all of these going to be funded out of current collections, or is there plans to borrow money to start some of them before the collections?
That's an excellent question, Judy.
That would be up to Mayor and Commission. There is, in order, one of the criteria to have the fixed dollar amount SPLOST program is that it does have to be some general obligation bonds as part of the process. So there would be, if they're going for a fixed dollar amount, they would have to bond some portions of the project. What that would be has not been decided, or how much that would be has not been decided. It's been part of it that's been talked about. We're still trying to run some different numbers to give Mayor Commission some more information to see how much should be bonded. But so some projects could be bonded to be done early, but other than that, it would come out of the collections. I haven't heard any talk about bonding the entire program or anything like that. That's just too expensive.
Yes.
I guess I'm speaking with Will, but is it ever possible to suggest anything else to be added to it? You wipe a few of them off. I have extra money. Is there any way to suggest another project?
We're still taking the public comment online, and we are still providing those to Mayor Commission as we get them before their next vote. They'll certainly get those. You can do that online, or you can leave us a comment on the form that we have here, written form, and we'll get that to the commission. Talk to your commissioner.
And as you mentioned, the full project list is still listed with their numbers. So if there's something on there that you'd like to look up that didn't appear, you can, when you submit your comment form, still reference that number and it would, correlate with any other comments that have already been submitted on those topics. So
I would expect Mayor Commission is going to make some changes to the list. They generally do, or have in the past. We make some change. This was a recommendation. This was not a mandate to them by the citizens. So there will be other projects I would imagine that they would add or take a look.
How elaborate should that comment be made? Should it go into detail as to how it would benefit, what it would cost?
I would, personally, I see Commissioner Eastman shake his head. Yeah, the more information you give in the comment is going to the commission. That information is going to them. And so the more specific your comment, I would think, should be. You're obviously trying to sell the idea to them in that comment. So more information. I think we do have a word limit on the comment form, but it's pretty high. I think it's like 2,500 words.
yes.
Yeah, just pointing out we do have two commissioners here, so we have to have a quorum, Jerry said, so. maybe they would be willing to just talk with some people.
Jerry loves it when I hand him a microphone.
You know
Do you want to say anything about the process or what you're expecting or?
Well, okay, it would be good for you to know that we're the only county that has a citizens advisory committee for this process. That was a decision that was made years ago when we first started. All the other counties, the whole process is done by the mayor, the commissioner, the city council. So ours is the one where we decided to get the citizens involved. It's a good process and it's hard work. I did it in 2010 and it would have got it. It's hard work.
Patrick, this is going to be your first go around with the SPLOST. What are you anticipating out of it?
Are you doing it? Anything out of that?
Well, I'm just curious what
There's
this
there's a large group of us here in town that wants to see a film commission started today.
Well, I was talking to Patrick Davenport behind you, but that's okay. It's good to know what you want. I'm sorry, my finger got a little off, but it's good to know. Maybe I'll just ask everybody what they want out of SPLOST. Patrick?
Yeah, I thought the film commission as well. It will be it's going to be a definite learning process and looking forward to listening to the community and what they want. There's also it's up to them.
The film commission would actually be, even though say we want 10 million, it would probably pay itself back 3 times over from extra sales tax, especially 8%. So it would be one of those, net zero or even a little better deal. And it's something that, we've talked to Kelly Kurtz about, but so far all this other stuff's come up and, we kind of got late in the process trying to make it work, but it's something that would put Athens on the map and change really a lot of things here. And certainly would bring in tons of jobs and other things that would help Athens out.
Okay. Do we want to kind of hear from folks about some of the different projects? Yeah, why not? We're all here. Do you guys want to just shout from where you're standing, or do you want to come up and use the microphone? We'll just let you shout from where you're standing, and I have a mic, and I can always, so.
Well, I'll start off. I'm with the airport. I'll just talk a little bit about the airport. Of course, I can't campaign, and I'm not here for that, but I can tell you the facts about the airport. A lot of the airport's old. It is old. I'd say about 40 years as far as pavement goes. A lot of the infrastructure is old. We just had redone the main runway. We got a beautiful runway now. We do have a secondary runway, which is on the SPLOST. We have to get that done for safety reasons. There's a lot of other things. We get inspected once a year by the FAA, and there's a lot of safety and security issues that that they look at and that we need to look at as well. But with that brand new runway, we can land airplanes now, but now they can't get off as a taxiway. So that's a part of it too. So there's just a lot of old infrastructure. It's a great airport. Been around since 1917, 19, something like that. So we're really lucky to have an airport in our community as an airport. And the oldest airport is I think it was the first airport in the state. So we're really lucky to say that as well.
I think we have a new terminal.
Yeah.
We have a new terminal too.
It's a new terminal. We have a new commercial terminal. We're working on the air service. This SPLOST, this SPLOST is for matching funds. And the good thing about that is that for every dollar we put in, we get $7 back from the FAA or the state. And so we get 90% funding from the FAA, and about 75% funding if it's a state project in the state. So we get some good money, just from what we put in. We have about $40 million of projects that we want to do on the airport, and then so what's in this SPLOST is just matching funds for that. So we get a good return on money for that. Yeah, we have a beautiful commercial terminal working on air service. So hopefully, we'll see the fruits of our labor sometime down the road.
Thanks.
Nice being home.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Wait, Jerry, we got a lot of things to talk about. We can't talk about the airport all night. We have an airport thing, just one off.
I'm David Fluck, I'm the Central Services Department Director, Animal Control's under my department. This project is just do some renovations at a shelter, which is out on Buddy Christian Way. The SPLOST 2011 program expanded the shelter basically by adding a wing that's primarily for cats. We didn't do very much of anything on the dog side except add a few more kennel ones. But the majority of the kennels on the dog side of the shelter are original. The building itself, the kennels themselves, were made out of concrete block and chain link fence. And over the years of many years of using a lot of bleach for cleaning, has degraded the materials quite a bit. Concrete blocks have a lot of cracks in them that we're always trying to seal. And it becomes a problem trying to keep the sanitary conditions. There are cracks we can get into. Our State Department of Ag inspector, who's a licensed under the Department of Agriculture, has commented on that, and that's something that he'd like to see us improve. So a big part of this project will be to renovate and rebuild the dog kennels. There might be, if we have a little bit of money left, to do some other renovations and improvements to the shelter. Over the years, we've been seeing a lot more. Our focus has been a lot more heavily on the shelter side, dealing with the animals that come to the shelter and adoptions and reclaims. So we're trying to make that a bigger focus of our operations.
Thanks. So, next two.
Still me.
Still you. We'll let you start over. So, the space modernization program, I love that kind of like maybe we're going to build a space station or something. And for 82 million, we wish it was a space station. But, and then public safety vehicles replacement program. So let's hear about those.
Space modernization program. I have to give someone else credit for coming up with the name. I'm not that creative, but it started with two things. One was try to vacate some buildings by consolidating government operations, and then the other issue is the courthouse. The courthouse was built over 100 years ago. The annex on the backside was built about 30 years ago, but the annex was built primarily for administrative offices, not for courtrooms. So over the years, of course, the needs of the courts have changed. The way you design a courthouse today is different. In our courthouse right now, there's only one path for pedestrians, people to walk around the building. So everybody that comes to the building passes everybody, whether it's judges, defendants, victims, families, jurors, everybody gets to pass everyone. That's not ideal way sensible. So we want to provide better space for our judicial system that is built to more modern standards to address security, dignity, operations, and provide them more space because the courthouse hasn't grown in many years, and the court's needs have, so that they can do more proactive programs as far as the judicial system. So we want to provide more, better space for them. Once we do that, then we can move departments out of some other buildings into the old courthouse, like do some renovations there. But that'll vacate a series of buildings that then can be sold or reused depending on what the mayor and commission, feels is best. But it'll consolidate a lot of our operations into government operations in one location. So, in a nutshell.
Public safety.
Public safety.
Vehicle replacement.
Public safety vehicle replacement. That program is designed to create a stable fund to provide for the scheduled replacement of police cars, fire engines, deputy, sheriff's office cars. We have a life cycle replacement program for all of our fleet vehicles with a defined target age. We actually replace them when they're half needed. But this program is one that was mentioned earlier that it'll provide some relief to the general fund. So it provides relief to the general fund, which is primarily property taxes, so that the general fund dollars can be used for other things hopefully without raising the mill rate. But it also creates a dedicated fund, so we make sure we have money. This project will stretch for the life of the SPLOST program. So we always have money to keep our public safety vehicles up to date, modern. As we go through it, we'll also look at energy and fuel sustainability issues too, whether it's going to a hybrid fleet or electric fleet, that'll all be built into it.
Okay, thanks. Did you have a quick question?
I want to ask you where you thought he was going to get the space to build this bigger courthouse. I mean, there is a garage there, but are you looking at maybe buying the federal building across the street and doing that? Because, it's one thing they talk about, spending all the money, but it's not planned for it.
Yeah, just like Keith had said earlier, once the referendum is passed, then we'll go start a process of site selection.
We've got a lot of vacant Kmart's in this
And
town.
right now, everything's on the table. Could we build a new building? Could we reuse an existing building? So,
You talked about actually keeping the courthouse and consolidating that.
we'll renovate the old courthouse into offices for the other government departments we want to move. Basically, the Dowry Street buildings into a lab building, the old building over there.
Okay, thank you. We're going to hear from someone else. Next items are fire department equipment and fire station 5 replacement.
Hi.
Thank you.
I'm Kyle Hendricks, I'm Assistant Chief of the Fire and Emergency Services Department. I'd like to talk to you about the fire station first, since we already have a question on that. The last 2 stations we built, aside from number 2, are also SPLOST stations that expanded our services, added a station where there wasn't one, had personnel associated with that. This one we're currently on, Cleveland Road, is a relocation. A main challenge, like he mentioned, is if you're going to build a fire station, you certainly want that station to still be able to function and run for that period of time, which is about a year. We also look at where might that station best fit the territory, the neighborhoods. For example, when Station 5 was built, there was no Station 7 on Barnett Shoals Road. It was built as the county headquarters. Luckily, the fire department consolidated long before the government, and we became Clarke-County Fire Department before unified government of Athens. So, but those needs have changed, and 7 and 5 were probably a little closer than what might be best. But we have to look at available properties, the territory, and with the ISO insurance rating, all of Athens-Clarke County properties need to be within 5 road miles of a fire station. Otherwise, they get no credit for having the fire department serving them, and typically get a very high fire premium. That's part of the reason why Station 2 got moved a little bit to the west to pick up some properties that were over 5 miles from the current location. The plan for the station would be to continue the similar trend of the style of stations that have been built, the last 4 or 5 of them. They look grand and they're great. The fire department lives on one side of them, and the other side is a community room that groups such as yourselves can rent for very little money. They also serve as voting precincts in certain stations. So, any questions on that particular item? Yes, sir.
Reading over this real quickly, I didn't see anything about vehicles, like fire trucks and stuff like that, ladder trucks and things. Some of those get pretty old. You're adding more, personal equipment or anything else.
Yeah, I'll talk about this next. We're obviously a great proponent of the project that Mr. Flux spoke of. Our replacement plan is our fire trucks are currently scheduled to last 17 years front line and another 5 years as a reserve. And understand that these things are 365/7, so they're expected to crank 24 hours a day. So we definitely would love for that to happen. We're finally transitioned off of the capital project. Thank you to the Citizens Committee that listened to these presentations. I'm not trying to be long-winded, but we had 6 projects, and we saw presentation many nights after work for all those folks, and a lot of work went into that. So we ended up with these 2 projects. So the fire station was the Allen 36. 32, we had instructions after the original presentation to come back with an alternate proposal that would cut it down some. So your description, we wouldn't be able to fund everything that's in the description on your piece of paper, because we were accepted as the alternate proposal. One of the main things, and I'm not trying to sell you the program, but I just got to tell you what we're presenting. There's been a lot of attention to the cancer rates in the fire service that we just never really paid attention to. And you sign up to be a fireman, you get dirty and wet and stinky. And you can set it here when you come on, and those are good for 10 years from the date of manufacture per the standards. We run a call's over, you get back in the truck with the same stuff, and you run the next call. And so the goal is to be more mindful of that, to have a set of gear, a primary set of gear, and also a backup set of gear. We'd like to go so far as when you ride that fire truck, you're in your clean stuff. If you fight a house fire and it's nasty, it doesn't go back in the cabin for the other 23 hours of the shift. So we'd like to have a clean set to swap into and properly wash those. We just take some specialized equipment. So that's the main focus of the equipment. Yes, sir.
I just have a general question. So when a firefighter goes and fight a fire, like a home fire, how much is the outfit, the apparatus that he's wearing per individual? How much does that cost?
A full set of gear is approximately $3,000 per set, and that's helmet, pants, coat, boots, hood, 2 different pair of those, depending on whether you're fighting fire or doing a vehicle extrication. The breathing apparatus are a separate purchase. And the reason why these SPLOST projects are important to us is we need to replace these things at once instead of having budget billing like I have on my utilities. 10 years from now, you have this $900,000 need, and it's difficult to budget. You have to do it as a capital project. Couldn't do it as an annual contribution any other way. But those are good for over 10, the breathing apparatus. If those are replaced under this, it would be toward the tail end of the collection period. We have to follow standards on every piece of equipment we have. Quickly on a couple of the other things, we've got 2 sets of jaws of life in the county. They're on rescue trucks. They now make some much better, smaller battery-powered ones where we could actually put at least 1 piece of these equipment on each of the 9 fire engines across the county. And we prioritize what's in there, but turnout gear is probably the problem.
Thank you. So, high-speed wireless broadband. Oh, sorry. Is there a question? I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Well, I really just have a comment, because listening to you list off this stuff that you need in the fire department, and even things like fire trucks and police cars, to me, that isn't what should be on a SPLOST. That should be paid for by the county, by the city. The city should be buying the equipment you need to be safe. And to have to put it on something like this, like a wish list, to me it's just wrong. Has anybody mentioned that at any point?
I understand how you're feeling about that. There is a program for the vehicles to be replaced. They were always on a capital account, and we've transitioned into the normal vehicle replacement fund. The problem is our needs, if you do the math on our trucks and how much they cost, it's almost $1 million a year to stay current. So it's a big challenge in itself. We just put 2 into service, which were the first ones on our normal vehicle replacement plan. And it worked well, but it takes a year. We have to plan ahead and know when to start that process, and try not to buy more than one of each time. The gear, we've all got a set of gear. We're in various stages of age. Just our eyes have finally been opened to what we're subjecting ourselves to that we could control otherwise. So it really is new service-wide, not necessarily here. So it's not like we've come and asked and been turned down on this equipment. The timing is just, this is when it's happening.
Well, good luck. I hope you get it.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, we're going to have to kind of keep moving.
Can I say this real quick?
Yes.
The original SPLOST, which you might have been hearing, time was to give taxpayer property relief for these individual purchases. So this is a perfect example where this helps. That's one of the reasons we let the college students and other people take this sort of thing. And that's the way it's always sold every time they try to pass one. But I do want to question you real quick. Who came up with the equipment budget? Because I think the 10 million over a 10-year period is too low for the type of equipment you have to buy.
For the vehicles?
You could spend
That's the vehicles.
Yeah, that's the vehicles. That wasn't a question I could answer. That was under David's field. But I know what our schedule looks like and when they need to be replaced. And it may, when I say $1 million a year, you know, there's gonna be some gaps where you don't have to buy one, but it's substantial.
I do want to let some of the other people who came and have projects that they're knowledgeable about, give them a chance to say something, and then we'll have some chance here to talk here at the end. So I don't think there's anyone here to talk about high-speed wireless, but you know, high-speed wireless sounds nice. Memorial Park renovations, phase 1. Yes. No. Hi.
I'm Mel Davis. I'm the Assistant Director of Leisure Services. And Memorial Park, I've already heard a little bit of misinformation out there, so I'm grateful for this opportunity to present some facts on what Phase 1 means for this project. Phase 1 is coming out of the master planning process that we completed last year. We had a lot of community input to see what people wanted, how we wanted to take this as one of our flagship, our oldest parks, and keep it alive so that people can continue to make memories with their families. What we identified here was the most critical component of keeping Memorial Park going. The pond and the lake down there, many of you may not be aware, but that is the stormwater treatment for the 147-acre watershed that is Five Points. And as more and more Five Points is paved, and as more and more development has occurred, there's been more and more water coming into Memorial Park at a faster rate. This project is designed to upgrade that facility so that it can handle that stormwater. Right now, all of the drainage at that park has failed. All the pipes are silted over. We've got a lot of issues with the forebay pond filling. We're going to have to replace some things. We also have a playground that is leftover pieces from other older playgrounds in the department, so we'd like to make that, as a community park, a nice new playground. So looking at that project, we also have situations where when you drive, and all of this, if you are familiar with Memorial Park, we're coming at the top of the hill. This is everything that's downhill. When you pull to the left, it's just coming to the park. We're addressing everything there. That's the Phase 1 area. So working on replacing that road. We have school buses that get stuck there, and if any of you ever run off the side of the road, you know what happens to your car. So looking at how we can fix that as far as regrading, reworking that, adding in new drainage, adding in some new opportunities for parking, the play area, and then looking at the area around the lake and the dog park, making that so that it's sustainable and not causing dog things to wash into the lake, which is causing some issue with some excessive nutrients in the water. So that's Memorial Park in a nutshell.
Thanks, Mel. I noticed that there's several other leisure services related items on here. Do you want to, I can just give them a shout out now and you could talk about any of those?
If there's no one from those groups, I'm happy to just give a little brief description.
That includes the Athens West Park.
Sure.
And then the Beach Haven Park, and then the Tallahassee Forest Park, and Holland Youth Sports. Sorry.
Sandy Creek Nature Center.
Oh yeah, it's all sorts of good leisure services things.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any of the citizens that put those projects forward here? Because I don't want to speak if they're here. Okay. I'll talk about them then.
Well, you can kind of do maybe a bigger overview about.
Really quickly, West Side Park, there's a lot of things listed if you look at that description. That was from the original proposal. What's come forward was an alternate proposal, which we're looking at land on the west side. That's pretty much for land acquisition only, and there's very limited space, but this is looking at west-west, kind of outside is, I think Gary would define west as past which one?
Yeah, well,
beyond Mitchell Bridge. so kind of beyond that west area. So this is a west side park. There's currently no park facilities out that side of town, so this project is looking at land acquisition for West Side Park. Beach Haven is a really unique historical and cultural resource that a lot of you may not realize. It's an arts and crafts treasure on that side of town that we have. Has a lot of beautiful land, has a wonderful cultural landscape, looking at opening that up to the public so that there's hiking trails, interpretation, access there. The paved bridge was removed as part of the alternate project. Really neat, really unique property that provides a lot of opportunities for the community, and it is one of those kind of gems that's known nationally for that arts and crafts summer home that's there. It's really, really a treasure. Then talking about Tallahassee, that was a treasure for a different reason. It's a very wonderful natural resource-based park. Tallahassee Forest has so many unique species. It's got so many areas that are still for Athens pristine, undisturbed, a lot of very unique ecosystems. So we're looking at how to open that to the public in a responsible manner. That whole thing is looking at some trails, some interpretive opportunities, basic public access, or kind of the phase one of the upper area of that park, again, providing opportunities for people to have access in a responsible way to something that's a very sensitive but important natural resource for the community. Sandy Creek Nature Center exhibit modernization. If any of you guys have gone to the Nature Center, and there's those kind of older fish tank areas and the things you can press the button and they make animal noises. Some of them don't make animal noises anymore, and some of them are kind of rubbed and tatty looking under microscopes, and some of those just different areas that have been loved to death because we've had so many children go through that place and learn about things there. It's time to modernize those exhibits so that the next group of children can learn about them and wear them out and enjoy everything there is there. And that one's a pretty modest by SPLOST standards. That's a pretty modest proposal. And then Holland is looking at safety improvements with circulation, looking at some netting so that people aren't getting hit by errant balls flying out of baseball parks. We're looking at pedestrian safety, looking at improving the concession stands, sorry, lost my word for a second. Looking at concession stands, replacing those so that they're modern and are up to date with standards. A lot of different things there just to bring Holland up to current standards and providing for a lot of different safety improvements. Did I cover it all?
Yeah, I think you got them all. All right, good job, thanks, Mel. So, 911 phone system replacement.
Good evening.
We all, yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Cleveland School. I'm a new Athens-Clarke Police Chief. I started February 4th, so I've been here a little more than 3 months as a police chief. The replacement of the E911 system, let me first begin by saying although this rests with the police department, it actually services police, fire, and emergency medical services. Any 911 call that comes in from a citizen requesting services from any of those entities would come into the E911 center, and then we would move it to the appropriate entity to have a unit dispatched. And so our current system is between 6 and 7 years old. Best practices suggest that you replace your systems every 8 to 10 years. And you couple that with the fact that technology has continued to advance and keeping up with what we call next generation technology. In order to do that, we need to replace the system. If you think about it, in the old days, you had a lot of people using landlines, and so when a call came in, they had a system called an anti-Alex system where you could cross-reference and figure out where a person is calling from. Now, everything is cellular telephone, and you're dealing with multiple different telephone providers, and you have to stay up to date with their technology that they have available. And so our current system will be outdated unless we continue to upgrade that system, and that's what this whole that SPLOST project is about.
Thank you. And thanks for coming. Welcome to Athens.
Thank you. I think I've got 2 more.
We'll get you on a panel here soon. And were there other?
I think I had 2 more.
Yeah, I think that's right. Go ahead and talk about this.
Okay, the next one I want to talk about is the assigned vehicle program. This is the police vehicle replacement program. Essentially, Mr. Fluck talked about one replacement program, which is when a vehicle reaches an 8-year cycle, it would be cycled in. And when you think about police vehicles, just like fire vehicles, it's not a regular car, because this is really the police officer's office. They're driving it 8 to 10 hours a day, and they're driving at high rates of speed, doing emergency responses and emergency vehicle pursuits. So you really have to have, those up-to-date modern vehicles, well-maintained vehicles. You also have to have a sufficient fleet of vehicles to allow for us not to do what we call hot seating. And that is, if you don't have enough for a 1-to-1 ratio of one car per one police officer, then what ends up happening is you drive a car for 10 hours, and then when that shift gets off, another person comes in and gets right back into that seat, and goes right back out on the street and goes again. So you're getting 24 hours of service out of a vehicle, and you're going to time it out, because even though it's one day, you're putting double the mileage on it. And when we're driving our vehicles, this is our officer's office. They're spending 10 hours in a day. They're driving them at high rates of speed in emergency conditions. We want to make sure that we have that 1-to-1 officer per car ratio, and this would actually allow us to do that. There's 2 other vehicles that are included in this. One is a mobile command center. In 2005, we were able to acquire a mobile command center through a grant. And this is the big bus RV that has all the technology and all the equipment on it that you would need to manage a large-scale event. So not only emergencies, but things like the UGA football games, when you have 90,000 people in the stadium and another 20,000 people in the community. Managing that, you need a mobile command center, something in the field where you can actually oversee and direct resources from. And this is what this mobile command center does. So that is due to be replaced. We've looked for opportunities to replace it through grant funding. Haven't been able to locate any. The current vehicle is coming up on 14 years old, and we need to replace that. And then finally, in that 37 vehicles, there's one additional vehicle, which is a transport vehicle where we would transport individuals from out in the field to a jail. And just by the number of arrests and geography, we have one. It's getting older, but we need a second one, and that's what that's for. And then the final item is the Public Safety Training Center. And this is, right now, we send all of our people. We have the land and we have a firing range here in Athens-Clarke-County. Our firing range now is really just a little more than just a berm out in the woods with a backstop. We do have an air compressor system that controls the facing target. That's outdated and antiquated. And since we had the land and to be able to build a training facility, we requested that we be allowed to build that training facility, a state-of-the-art police training facility here in Athens-Clarke County. Right now, when we put our people through training, we're oftentimes going as far away as Forsyth and other locations, putting people up in hotels overnight in order for them to be able to attend that kind of training. And we want to bring that training here to Athens-Clarke County. We would also find some opportunities to actually charge other people who might come in to use that facility here. So it might be a generator of funds over time. So.
Thanks. So let's talk trash. So there is the recycling created, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I just had a quick question. What happens to the cars once they're out in their life cycle?
Once they come through their life cycle, so let's say they go through 8 years and they come through their life cycle, then Mr. Fluck would auction them off or find an appropriate use for them.
We sell all that auctions through an online website called GovDeals.com.
What we want to do is make sure that they've got excellent maintenance on the vehicles, but after a certain period, you want, just for liability purposes, you don't want to have a 20-year-old car out running at high speeds and then something go wrong with it.
I was just curious from a community standpoint. There are a lot of the community that use transportation. I'm trying to see if there's a way to create a program where they could be able to have access to have first reference, purchase those cars at a rate that you would sell to an auction or something like that.
All right. Trash.
And I'll be quick.
These are related anyway, right?
Well, no, I asked my fellow directors to be here or their staff. So first of all, I want to thank you guys for being here on Monday night with me. And secondly, I'm Suki Jansen. I'm with the Solid Waste Department. And how many of you recycle? Your recyclables come to our facility. Our facility is over 25 years old. It was started by the longest running citizen group that's still active today, the Solid Waste Citizen Advisory Committee. They actually were the force behind our recycling facility. We have functionally outgrown our recycling facility. We get 80 tons of material, between 80 and 100 every single day of material. Just like technology in the 911 center, I know recycling, you wouldn't think it was high technology, but our facility was set up when we had one newspaper. How many of you read newspapers the old school way? Okay, hardly anybody. Oh, Patrick, you still read newspapers the old school way. Well, most of us are like this with the newspapers, which doesn't require sortation at the recycling facility. So we do desperately need to update the recycling facility and also update it so we can have more material sort. China dropped what they call the national sword about a year and a half ago, which really is changing the face of how we recycle materials. And I'm not saying recycling is the best. Reduce is always better. Reuse second, recycle third. Recycle should never be a crutch for other better ways to deal with waste. But the last thing we want to do is expand that landfill anymore. So diverting more from the landfill. We get 300 tons a day at the landfill, 80 to 100 of recycling. We'd like to flip that. We'd also like to move the new recycling facility out to the landfill space so that we have all the solid waste facilities at two different locations, the landfill and the solid waste admin building. In conjunction with the processing facility, we asked for actually $16 million. That's what it would cost for a new recycling facility. We came back with an alternative plan for $8 million because we believe if we have $8 million, we can clear the land, build a shell of a facility, and leverage that to get a private company to operate us. Currently, we are operated by Republic Services. We've always been operated by private companies in all the 25 years. Private companies like operating, they don't like building the facilities. So often if you build it, they will come. But we feel like if we can build the facility, have a space, they would be willing to put the equipment in that they prefer and then have an operating contract with that private company. And then that would free up our current MRF, which is about 2,300 square feet. And we hope to move the charm, the teacher reuse store, everything at College Avenue over to the old recycling facility. So we'd have the tool shed, which is a tool swap. It's a loaner program, the teacher reuse store, where teachers can come and shop and get whatever they want for free. We solicit donations from businesses and residents. We move about anywhere between 50 and 100 tons of material annually into classrooms at no charge for teachers in Clarke, Madison, Oglethorpe, and Oconee County. So we'd like to see that program expanded too. And that would go into the old recycling facility. So those are kind of connected together. If we get a new MRF, we can move off of College Avenue. Some of you might say, I like the charm, I like the teacher reuse store and the tool shed at College Avenue. That piece of property though could be so much more than our charm. And I love our charm. My staff would probably slap me for saying this. I do love our charm. I love our teacher reuse store and our tool shed, but I think we would be better off next to our solid waste department where we get synergies with our collections staff and can provide more opportunities there. So those are our two projects. So.
Yes.
For her.
Yeah.
I actually thought full funding was a good idea because it's like a $280 million consumption tax. So, I mean, I think we should be able to recycle what we consume, but how hard was the hit when you had to cut it for hard to recycle items? How is that going to impact the new building?
The cut I took are you talking about the second project proposal?
Yes.
I cut it in about half.
How's that going to impact hard to recycle items in the new facility?
That won't affect it at all. Moving the actual Project 48, we didn't cut it all. It was Project 49 we cut in half. Okay. So Project 48 wouldn't have an impact as long as Project 49 was funded and we get it out of its space and out of the landfill.
Okay, and we've just got one more person, I think, to hear from. Yes? What? Oh, Vincent John. Somebody knows something about it besides me? That'd be great.
You pretty much had a good overview of what the project is, and yes, this is a connectivity sidewalk proposed. the neighborhood and the public had a very strong input, and that's why this project, in the eyes of the committee, made it to the list. And pretty much you've covered everything about this project, and yes, there is a stormwater component to this. With every sidewalk we do, we look at stormwater, and there is an opportunity to improve. We will, and we are aware of some stormwater issues there as well.
All right, thanks for everybody who contributed tonight and let you know a little bit more about it. And I think hopefully this also let other people here know who they might talk to find out a little bit more about certain projects. And of course, all of this is online. Where? At accgov.com/SPLOST2020. That's where you go to find all of your breaking SPLOST information. And on May 16th, this week, on Thursday night, the Citizens Advisory Council is going to be in front of the public and take comments from the public on these candidate projects. So, tell your friends. And then next week, this goes to the Mayor and Commission, and then they will be reviewing it, and they will have public hearing on that in June 18th is the date that we have listed here on the key dates that are on the SPLOST website. And then the fun really starts. So, and we'll see where that goes. Yes?
Since this is the Federation of Neighborhoods meeting.
It is the Federation of Neighborhoods meeting.
Yes, and you guys are all for its neighborhoods. I just wanted to say really quickly, we have started our needs assessment for our 10-year plan for the department, which will inform future SPLOST projects. But we are taking public input. I have a business card with information on our survey, and I need everybody. I'm trying to get to the same 20 people on these things. So if you can spread the word with your neighborhoods, your people, please, I've got information.
Okay.
We have that open.
So if you care about leisure services, get a card from Mel, take her survey, because she doesn't want just me taking her survey. She'd like to hear from as many people as possible. And I am going to wrap up this evening. Oh wait, Roger, one last question, go. What's your
I guess it would be for Keith maybe, or
sure.
Whatever official in the room. Is there any way to secure or create a program where we can kind of grant a supplier diversity for some of the capital building projects and whatnot? As far as procurement, I know they do a federal program where they try to improve minority businesses. GDOT has a state program where they support disadvantaged businesses. Is there any way, because it's a lot of millions of dollars, and some of the companies actually they get contracts that are based out of Atlanta, business construction and others. Is there any way to keep more of those dollars local and to spread it around to more diverse base of business?
We're talking about that a lot.
Yeah.
And I suspect that the mayor's probably going to ask staff to formulate the options that are legal and can be done. There's a lot of legal pitfalls that I think the commission supports an idea like that. We at least give bonus points based upon some criteria, local and on and that sort of thing. So I think we would
I think there's a lot of opportunities there to for prime contractors that's familiar with the process to partner with other smaller subs, especially some of the minority.
Okay, for all of you in the room who didn't hear that conversation, it was really good and interesting. And so it was about having the opportunities to have more minority-based or other maybe even local contractors and disadvantaged smaller businesses maybe, and getting them involved in some of the process and some of this money. We all know, one thing we all know about Athens is about spending our money locally, that those dollars return in a much higher rate than when our money leaves our little tiny county. So I'm going to let Keith answer that.
Question on that, just a little quick.
Sure, but Keith didn't even get to answer the first question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but maybe his follow-up will answer yours. So, Go Keith, and then they really throw us out of CNA here at a certain point, so we have to leave. Okay, go.
I think Commissioner Naismith obviously answered it correctly. That is a mayor commission decision and discussion that is ongoing about policy, so anything I can address.
Okay, so if that's something of interest to you, talk to your mayor and commission. Yes.
I
follow up.
I thought Commissioner Neesmith answered the question very well.
Okay.
One follow-up question. Since SPLOST started in 1985, is there any report or paper talking about how y'all get minority businesses more included in SPLOST spending that we can refer back to when they're making decisions?
No, I don't know, I don't think purchasing or finance department has that, and I know we don't.
Okay. Yes, Francis.
Sorry, what did Commissioner Lisa say?
What Commissioner Neesmith said, the question was, are there opportunities specifically in the SPLOST project to award contracts or subcontracts to local businesses? And what I think, Mr. Davenport would agree, there's a great will in the commission to thoroughly investigate that and see what the options are. We're very busy right now doing the budget, and when we get through that, I suspect that the mayor's going to, it's going to be up to him to task this. He's going to task the staff to look into what our options are to do that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. That was a good question. So before you leave, remember, you can pick up this lovely slip of paper. If it just reminds you then to go online and fill out comments about various projects related to SPLOST 2020 and